Hey, wait, is this thing on? Oh, it is. Hey guys, this is, Editor Agent here, and I just wanted to inform you that we have a new goal, and the new goal is 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Yeah, I know, it's a big goal from where we're at right now, but I believe in you. And, you, the viewer, yeah, you, if you look down slightly, yeah, keep looking, more. You see that? Yeah, that's the subscribe button. If you press it, you'll get notified about my videos and content. And every time I post, you will know about it. So yeah. And if you press the like button, you will show even more people about this spectacular content that you so love and enjoy. And also, just a random fact on the screen. There's just, new content that's going to come out when we reach 1,000 subscribers. I'm totally not spoiling anything, of course. But yeah, you know, editor editor agent, I guess, is probably writing some stuff on the screen. If he is, make sure you don't pay attention to it. Yeah, don't worry about it. I am not a sellout, by the way, so yeah, don't worry about what it says on the screen. Just completely ignore that. But yeah, I've wasted your time enough. Unless you didn't do it. If you didn't do it, I'll wait. No, but like seriously, do it. Okay, so you probably did it by now. Back to your regularly scheduled program. What is up, you guys? It's Agent What If, and I am back again with another video. So, this will be part 2 of What If Deku had an OP visual quirk. So, without any further ado, let's just get into it. With that being said, we come back to our last video. Izuku's rocky, to say the least, introduction to UA was the least of his problems. As soon as we get to most of the exam, at least in the mental categories with the tests, Izuku passed with flying colors. But the problem came at the practical exam. Izuku's quirk really isn't suited to direct the violence, so yeah, Izuku actually couldn't attack the robots because he's a normal person basically, without using he's a normal person physically. So Izuku definitely was gonna have a hard time with this test. And Aizawa was watching and was thinking to himself, I wonder how this kid is going to do, against the robots, seeing what his quirk is. And Izuku, as soon as President Mike says start, Izuku's off to the races and begins to run over to a robot, but soon realizes that he can't actually do anything to these robots. And literally everyone is kind of laughing because Izuku is just punching the robots and then saying ow and having to dodge their attacks because he really can't do anything to them. They're not like super hard. It's just that Izuku's a normal guy. So he can't really do anything to the robots. And Izuku then, decides that he's going to use his quirk. So Izuku uses his quirk and starts controlling Bakugo to actually, destroy robots for him. And, he starts doing this, and Izuku, gets enough points and, everything. And by the end, Bakugo is exhausted, and he wonders why. He can't remember what happened, but he just is exhausted. And essentially, a few minutes later, the test ends, and everyone learns what Izuku did. And Izuku then asked them if the points that Bakugo got applied to himself, and they said yes. And Izuku said yes. But then, when Bakugo heard about what had happened to him, he was very angry with Izuku, and his rage started to boil over. Izuku essentially was walking out, whistling with his hands in his pockets, when he got ran up on by Bakugo. And Bakugo came up to him, and then put his hand right on Izuku's shoulder, and looked him in the eye, and he said, "I'm gonna kill you." And Izuku said, "Why would you do that?" And he said, "You're a freak. You literally controlled me to do the test. How pathetic. Of course, you can't do anything on your own. That's to be expected of someone with such a coward's quirk." Izuku said, I don't think it was such of a coward's quirk when I was controlling you and you were my lapdog and I wasn't. Bakugo gets angry and actually punches Izuku. And immediately, like, the security guards at UA and the heroes grabbed Bakugo and hold him back. And Eraserhead is actually the one who says, Izuku, are you okay? And Izuku, with his nose bleeding, wipes away the blood, puts his nose back in place, and cause he also, like, got his face pretty bruised. He says that he's fine and walks away. Aizawa then thinks to himself, maybe I should. No, he can probably hear that. Izuku then tells Aizawa that he wants to know who this person is. He just says, Aizawa, who's this person you keep thinking about? And Aizawa then goes up to Izuku and says, why do you keep reading my mind? Izuku says, I told you how my quirk works. Don't get mad at me. Aizawa then says, his name is Shinsa. And Izuku says, okay. He says, he has quirks similar to yours, but not necessarily the same. Because of his quirk, he only was good enough to go into general studies, though. So maybe you could convince him to use his quirk more effectively and truly become a hero. Izuku then says, sure, I'll give it my best shot. And at the end, of the conversation, Aizawa then proposes that he'll try to teach Izuku how to use, the cloth that he uses. Izuku says fine, and Aizawa says that they'll start training soon, and he'll let him know, like, he'll come get him when he wants to train him. And Izuku then goes back home, and the next day they go in the classes, right? And in the class, Aizawa is the teacher. Izuku is surprised and a little bit shocked, and everyone kind of emanating this bad vibe towards Izuku. And, like, no, not everyone, but most of the people have this kind of bad vibe, and some of them are kind of scared of him, but Bakugo really wants to fight him. Izuku, sensing this vibe, really doesn't care and makes himself invisible to everyone there except for Aizawa. And everyone is confused and kind of upset, even angrier than they were before. So Izuku, with a smile on his face, Aizawa then tells them about what their first test of UA will be, and that it will be a quirk assessment test, and to meet him out on the field in 5, and they do. Izuku not getting first place in this, actually getting 7th, goes 7th and does average in all of the tests because he's just a normal guy. He's not overly, he's in shape, but he's not overly, like, muscular or nothing. So he's just a normal guy. And after this, we time skip approximately a week, right? We come back to Izuku being in class, and that's when All Might busts through the door and thinks to himself, so that's Izuku Midoriya. And then he says, I'm opening the door like a normal person. And everyone's actually pretty surprised that it's All Might, and it's kind of stoked that he's going to be their teacher. Izuku, not really affected by this, and liking Aizawa more than All Might really, didn't really care. All Might then tells them what they'll be doing and where to meet him, and, their hero costumes. Izuku, goes out and meets up with the group, and All Might explains exactly what they're going to be doing and how it's a random test where there will be a hero and villain side. After the random, whatever it is, like drawing straws or pulling names out of a hat or an algorithm or whatever the case may be, like, after that, it comes up to Izuku and Ochako, right? And versus Bakugo and Ida. Izuku and Ochako on the hero side, and Bakugo and Ida on the villain side. Bakugo looks at Izuku, goes up to him, and then goes into the building, and then, All Might says, you villains, you have 5 minutes to prepare for the heroes. Izuku sits down on a bench, and Chaco comes over to Izuku and like she tries to talk to about a plan like him. She essentially says it like, well, since like you're she doesn't really say it in a disrespectful tone. It's just more like she's like, well, since your quirk really isn't physical, I'll try to distract Bakugo and maybe you can sneak past Ida. And Izuku was like, well, why would I do that? And she was like, yeah, well, since your quirk isn't really physical, it might be better if that's the way that you did things. And Nezuko says, I'm going to have fun with this. How about you go get the bomb? I'm going to take on Bakugo. And Ochako then says, are you sure you can? And he says, yes, without a doubt. And then she says, okay, I believe you. Let's get this dub. And with that, a bell or a timer buzzes. And then All Might says, go, heroes, into the building. And Ochako hides behind the stairs, and Bakugo comes flying down the stairs, only to see nobody, right? Like, only to see nobody. And Izuku essentially, like it's just standing right there, and he signals to Ochako to, like, go up the stairs, and she makes her way up the stairs. Bakugo is thinking to himself, he's probably somewhere around here, so I'll just go upstairs and go defend the bomb. That way, at least, no matter what, he'll have to come to me, right? And he'll have to make himself visible or whatever, or it'll be easier to, catch him. Izuku, knowing this, undoes it to himself, so he's visible. And Bakugo says, so, you were reading my mind. Lucky me. And he dives towards him. And Izuku dodges the attack, and he says, Bakugo, I want to know something. Bakugo, not listening. Izuku says, do you really hate me? And Bakugo says, of course I hate you. And Izuku then says, okay. And immediately he sticks his hand out, right? And his eyes start to glow red. And Bakugo just stops. Like, he just stops. He falls to the ground. And, he's still standing up. And he just can't move. And Izuku says, I'll ask you one more time. Except this will be a different question. Do you surrender, right? Like, and Bakugo will be like, of course not. Stupid. And before he can do it, Izuku controls Bakugo's mind and makes him forcibly close his own mouth. And Izuku says, this is going to hurt really badly. And that's when All Might begins to say something, but Izuku essentially puts Bakugo into a trance where he's essentially experiencing like a lower version of this. It's of what you see on the screen, except being, in a genjutsu and getting stabbed by swords. This is a world where Bakugo's quirk doesn't work, and it's just a whole bunch of Izuku's beating Bakugo into the ground, like absolutely destroying him, sending him flying. Like, they have all kinds of powers, like super strength, super speed, like they can control fire in his mind, and they're just absolutely destroying Bakugo and just throwing him around to the next Izuku to absolutely wreck him again, right? But outside, Izuku controls his body and forcibly makes Bakugo break his own bones. Like, you know how some, like, your arms aren't designed to go a specific direction? Well, he made Bakugo grab his own arm and completely twist it backwards, which snapped it, right? Which broke it. Izuku then made Bakugo break his own leg, and that's when All Might screamed and said, stop. And Izuku was like, okay. And he stopped, only for Bakugo to wake up coming out of his trance and seeing Izuku and wanting to get up to fight him and falling to the ground and immediately starting screaming in pain because he has broken bones. Ochako hears this scream and thinks it's Izuku, and she immediately goes rushing for the bomb. And in this scenario, she dives towards Ida. Ida tries to kick her. She ducks it, touches his leg, which pulls him off balance, making him float, and she touches the bomb, right? She begins running down the stairs thinking that Izuku is hurt or something, only to see Bakugo disfigured, like his legs bent all the way in the wrong direction and his arm is completely in the wrong position. And she's just like covers her mouth in horror, and Izuku's like, wow. This was all interesting. And then that's when All Might starts screaming and yelling at him like, "What are you doing? How dare you do that to young Bakugo? You're such a..." And then Izuku snaps his fingers, and actually he was mind controlling everybody at that point. He had already turned invisible and touched the bomb long ago. Right? Like he had just mind controlled everyone there to see how they would react if he did something. And All Might realizes his mistake when he sees Izuku touching the bomb, and Izuku's face turns into like sort of a frown because it's like, wow, you guys really thought that I was some type of villain. And All Might was like about to call him out of his name, call him a villain, like about to go call the heroes and stuff. And Izuku was like, wow. And All Might was like, wait, young Midori. Before he could say anything, Izuku disappeared. And he just began to walk out of the building. He had already knocked Bakugo out, though. And that's when he left for the day. He just left for the day. And Aizawa called him, Aizawa, got a hold of his phone number and called him. And he told him to meet him, at his house. And he did. And he was like, I heard what you did today. And Izuku was like, okay. And Aizawa then says, not all the time everyone is out to get you. And Izuku says, why does it always seem like it then? And he says, and Aizawa says, to be fair and to give them the benefit of the doubt, you did put them under a scenario where you did something wrong. Izuku says, of course I did. But that's how they were feeling anyway. It's not like I'm blind or anything. I could see the glares they were giving me. And Aizawa then asks him, so, are you going to let those glares get to you, or are you going to move past it? And Izuku says, I would never let someone else's opinion affect me so greatly. And that's when Shinso walks down the stairs, hearing all of this and seeing, Aizawa in his, workout clothes, and Izuku in some workout clothes. And he walks down the stairs and he says, Dad, who's this? And Aizawa then says, this is Izuku. And Izuku immediately activates his quirk and he says, so you're Shinso, in Shinso's mind. He says, so you're Shinso. And he's immediately surprised and he's like, what? And Izuku says, oh, so that was your quirk. Yes, it is very similar to mine. Your father was right. And Shinso looks at Aizawa, and Aizawa tries to play it off like he didn't bring him here to show him how to use his power. So Izuku then just talks to Shinso and he's like, how does your power work? And Shinso says, he just says, well, my power works like this. He says, what's my name? And Izuku then says, Shinso. And then Shinso's shocked because that's typically how it works. And Izuku picking up on this thought is like, oh, that doesn't work on me. My mind is impenetrable against other psychic attacks because I have a barrier across my mind. My mind is it's inaccessible to someone of your skill. And Shinso thinks this is insult, but Izuku says this isn't an insult. It's just saying that you can grow. And Shinso didn't even realize that's how he was talking about it. And he was like, wait, I can get stronger? And Izuku says, if you want to, you can. And Shinso then says, but how? He says, well, number one, almost everyone who has, psionic abilities or, psychic abilities can access a person's mind. It's just how deep you can go into it. Shinso's can only activate the controlling the mind at the base level. At the base level, you can control a person and make them do what you want them to do. That's how far along Shinso is. When at maximum, he could easily control someone's emotions. Shinso is essentially an empath in this story. He's an empath. He can control a person's emotions and bring them out or amplify them or make them stronger or whatever. That's really his type of power. That's why his mind control is so trash, because that's not his main ability. Izuku can even like look inside of a person's body and make their body like unlock its full potential, because Izuku like can manipulate a quirk, because typically a quirk, imagine this, a quirk is like a question mark, and Izuku can essentially look behind that question mark and see what it is, and typically there's a prerequisite to like awakening a quirk. There's something you need to do, whether it be like, use your quirk for a really long time, like, consecutively, or like be in a dangerous situation and need it to work with all your might, or like any other type of dangerous or stressful situation. So Izuku immediately snaps his fingers, right? Shinso falls to the ground. Aizawa thinks, what did you do? And Izuku says, I'm unlocking his power. And Aizawa is kind of stumped. And Shinso is immediately going through some turmoil, right? Like, he's going through a stressful situation where Aizawa is essentially like attacking him. Like, Aizawa is attacking him, and it like, has a weapon and is trying to cut him and kill him. And that's when like Aizawa essentially gets the upper hand against Shinso quite easily, like in real life, and puts the sword like to the knife to his neck, and then begins to end him. And that's when Izuku snaps him out of it, and Shinso has his eyes closed, and he says, now you are ready to train. You have unlocked your full potential, but you still need to get stronger. But then Izuku says, wait, Aizawa, what about my training? And Aizawa says, oh, I didn't expect his to go so quickly. I'll be training you and you'll be training him. But with that,